Welcome to another episode of the Boxless World podcast, where we talk with guests redefining approaches to business and life. Today we welcome Carolynn Bain, founder of Afrori Books, the Brighton Book Festival, community leader, equality advocate, proud mum, activist, mentor, the list goes on. Welcome, Carolynn. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We've had many chats about this, and you've shared this in other interviews, but Afrori grew from your frustration really at how difficult it was to find books by black authors. What was that moment when that frustration became, right, I'm going to step outside the box and I'm actually going to build the alternative?
I was on a march, a Black Lives Matters march in late August 2020. I was marching with my kids, and I had this realization that I had gone on my first anti-racist march when I was 9, so that was 40 years earlier, and I just thought, what the heck am I doing? This isn't enough. Hey, marching is important, protest is important, but what does that look like on an everyday basis? And like lots of people, it was 2020, I was reconsidering what life and the universe would look like for me going forward because of the pandemic, and I just thought I could do something more tangible, and for me books were always the lifeline. Books were what took me out of poverty, changed my life completely, and I believe in the power of books, that books can transform and change people. So I just thought, well, what if I had sent off for books from all around the world when my kids were growing up, but what if I didn't? What if there was a place where I could go and find those books? It never occurred to me that I couldn't be the person to do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of bravery, because you started Afrori without a traditional book selling or retail background. So what did you have to learn or unlearn to start that business and lead that change?
Yeah, you have not got a podcast long enough for the things I've had to learn and unlearn. Like, that list is continuous. I knew nothing about retail. I never had even a Saturday retail job. So I only knew retail from the point of view of a consumer. I did know the black community. I knew what it's like to be black in this country. I knew what it meant to be a reader. And so everything was really based off of that. Everything was based on what do I want to feel? What makes me feel safe in a space? What makes me feel comfortable in a space? What makes me feel secure and loved, even? I'm going to go that far, in a space. And so how do I create that? How do I make that happen? I mean, I think no decent entrepreneur would say that they've stopped learning. Like, no decent business person would say, if you have, just pack it in, just go off, go lie on a beach somewhere, do something else. You're just
or put it in a jar and sell it to everyone.
Yeah, so I think it is a continual learning. I'm really fortunate that book selling, generally speaking, as a community, is a very warm and welcoming space. Booksellers are not very good at being competitive, and so there isn't a day of the week that I can't pick up the phone and call another bookseller and say, how do I do this? But also, the Brighton community have just been, we could talk about that for hours as well, but have been incredible in terms of loving and supporting us.
What's really interesting as well, which I think from an external lens, if you haven't been to Afrori Books, or this is your first point of learning about Afrori Books, it's much more than somewhere that sells books. It's become a community space. It delivers events, workshops, anti-racist work for young people. When did you realise that Afrori needed to be more than a bookshop?
There are a few moments like that. I guess just watching people's reaction when they come into the bookshop makes you think, well, what else could I do for those people? So it's not uncommon. I would say it happens at least once to twice a month that someone walks into the bookshop and just cries because they're just overwhelmed by the blackness around them. But then people talk to you and tell you other things that are going on in their lives, to do with, their race, their culture, their activism, and you just think, well, we could help with that because we have this platform. And so I think, there are different things for different things that we do. Almost everything we do has come from a customer saying, I tried to do this, or I want to do this, and we've said, hey, can we help with that? I mean, I hope that people who know us know that is our normal response to things, that we're like, oh, we can help. What can we do to help you? How can we help you? How can we support you? So, the anti-racist kids club that we take into schools comes from a 9-year-old girl coming into the shop and being visibly upset because she had tried to teach her friends about how to be anti-racist and set up a little lunch club in a cupboard, literally, that the school gave her, and no one turned up. And I was like, we could do that. Why don't we do that for you? Why don't we do that in the shop? And that's just, blown. We've taken that to schools all around Sussex now. So I literally wrote a programme thinking, what does this 9-year-old girl, what do her friends need to know? And I wrote this 6-week programme. The hair education came from, again, a child come in the shop, mum crying because she didn't know how to look after her daughter's Afro-textured hair. So things often come from just these needs in the community because we want to serve the community. And that's, there are lots of people out there, and you know this yourself, Bud, that pop into your community and say, oh, look, we've got this for you. And you're like, we didn't ask for that. We didn't want that. How's that of use to us? And it tends to be very performative, and it tends to often be based around white liberalism, and performative and white saviorism and etc. And so I never want that. I never want to do that to my community. I always want to be like, okay, do you want this? Do you need this? And so there are things, it sounds great. Oh, you do this and you do this. There are things that we tried that we don't do anymore because it didn't work, or because they stopped, the need for them stopped. So some things are just short seasons as well. Some things are failures, but some things are just short seasons.
One of the things that, for me particularly, and I know for many other parents that visit the bookstore, is the volume of books that you have for children, but also for parents to read to children. And as a parent myself with young children, having a resource to be able to teach kids early on about their identity, about their history, about their culture is really important, and something that was present in my life because my parents were able to find those and deliver those, but there's many children whose parents don't have that resource to hand. In your experiences with children coming to the bookshop, or part of the Anti-Racist Kids Club, or any of the other kind of programs that you deliver at the bookshop, what are you seeing that children are already capable of understanding about racism that adults sometimes underestimate?
I mean, children are very aware of the lack of representation. And I don't mean just black children. And that is what is most shocking to parents, I think. So when we first opened, we had a little girl come into the shop, blonde hair, blue eyes, with her mum, and her mum was just chatting away to me. And then the little girl said, Mum, look. And the mum was like, what? And she said, my friend's in a book, because she saw a black child in a book. So children are so aware that there is a lack of representation, and they are looking for that. They are searching for that. And I think that is probably the most fundamental thing. The other, everything else is a bonus coming from that. The more representation we have in books, the more we will have these conversations about racism, the more we'll have, black children on adventures, and it will seem perfectly natural. All of these other things will just come from that. But so I think the representation and the awareness, parents love to say, well, kids don't see colour. And it's just not true. It's absolutely not true. Kids are very aware of the differences between them. The key there is that children are less likely to penalize someone for being different. That is taught. But children are very aware, very, very. I mean, I've got a white mum, and so my children grew up with a white grandmother and a black grandmother. And when my son was little, he used to call them brown nanny and black nanny, and I couldn't understand what he meant. And he was describing their hair. Now, that doesn't mean my son doesn't see colour, but the important thing for him was that one of them had this long hair and one of them had short hair, and one's hair was brown and one hair was black. You know, he can see the differences. When I then said to him, but one of them's white, he said, yeah, I know that, but that's not the most important thing about them, is it? It's their hair. Surely it's their hair, you know. So these things are very obvious to children, but we want to sweep it in because it makes it more comfortable for the grown-ups to go, well, they don't see it because look how pure they are, therefore we should be like that. And I'm arguing absolutely not. We should see and celebrate, and it's one of the things we talk about all the time. We can't celebrate what we can't acknowledge, and we want to celebrate our differences because they are beautiful and they make us unique. So let's acknowledge and then let's celebrate.
Definitely. With people coming to the bookshop, buying a book, perhaps you see them again, perhaps you don't see them again. Is there a danger in people coming to the bookshop, buying a book, thinking that they've contributed? Is that a positive, that they've come, they've made a purchase, and perhaps you don't see them again, or is it actually a negative? And is that something that is less helpful in the kind of the overall mission that Afrori Books and yourself are trying to work towards?
Yeah, I mean, our mission is definitely to build community, and we don't build community with one-offs. The answer is yes. Is it a positive or a negative? Yes, it's both. We don't know what people will do with a book. We don't know what conversations, what decisions, are being made out there. We don't know, if they'll then go and look for black books somewhere else. So they might be, someone might come and buy a book from us, by a black author, then go back to their village bookshop and pester their village bookshop to stop more black authors. So I guess I try to think positively and assume that all those wonderful things are happening on the back of every purchase. But the reality is we want to build community, and so we want people to feel engaged not just with the book but with the other readers around them. And so for me, I say this quite a lot, but that's the role, particularly for adults, that book clubs play. And so I give this analogy often, which is, imagine you're reading a book and you're reading that book in a room that's full of luggage of all different shapes and sizes, and each page of your book is plastered, stuck to a different piece of luggage. So you read a page that feels quite heavy, quite emotionally draining for you. That page is on a giant trunk. But there's another page that feels light and easy. You might have flitted past it. That was just on a sort of bum bag. And that's how you read the book, that's how you see the book. But you go to a book club, you go to a space where you're having a discussion about that book, and you talk about that page that was really heavy, and oh my gosh, the weight of that, and oh, that felt really difficult. And somebody else says, what? No, what do you mean? I didn't find it like that. I thought that was this, I thought that meant that. And that might lift that weight for you because you suddenly realise that was just you and how you viewed it. Or it might be that you're enlightening someone else and they took something that was simple, and didn't understand the depth of it. So, books should be, in their best, they should be conversation starters. They should make you go, oh my gosh, I just read. And so you might do that individually. A book club is the ideal place to do that, because you've got multiple voices talking about a piece of literature, a piece of writing. So, and we hope the same happens with our children's books in another sense, that children, have their own book clubs anyway, because they're like, I like that book about adventure, and they will talk to their friends, and they'll talk to their parents if their parents are listening about, well, hold on, wait, why did the boy not like the other boy? Why did that happen? And that in and of itself is almost like a book club. So as adults, we need to take that on and think, how am I having conversations about these texts, about these subjects that some just being touched on, some going into in great depth. And so what I hope is that people, even those one-off visitors, will go back and talk to their family and friends about what they've read. Will join a book club and talk about, or recommend that book to a book club. You know, there are so many other ways to start conversations. So as an optimist, yes, I hope that's what's happening.
You have been named British Bookseller of the Year twice, I believe.
Yeah.
And some other fantastic accolades as well. Obviously, the recognition is great, but you're up against, in many instances, huge competitors, the likes of Amazon and other huge book chains. How do you slot into their world when you've got such massive competitors that are offering books at prices that you can't as an independent retailer, that are offering turnaround times that are perhaps, you know, out of your reach? How do you slot in and try to stand out in that space?
So I think key for me is I don't look at them as competitors, because I can't. If I did that, I just wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. I can't, you know, the Zon sells books at the price that I buy books. But they also don't pay the people around them a living wage. They don't care about community. So I try to look at it in a more holistic picture, that all that we do. I think that our customer base and the people that we are reaching to are, they're activists, they are protesters, they're disruptors. And so actually, when they buy a book from us, the majority of our customers are buying a book from us to make a point. They're putting two fingers up to the man, so to speak. And so I think that we're reaching a community that those other spaces are not reaching. I think that the conversations that we're having, the recommendations, you know, all of those other things that come around the book. You know, we have customers who, when I first started the bookshop, I was at a party and someone said, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a professional bubble burster." And they were like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I do. I go around popping bubbles." And they were like, what does that mean? I said, "Well, people sit in these reading bubbles, and I go and pop that and say, well, what about this?" And so I think because that's what we're doing, and that's what those other people cannot do. They're just, you know, they are relying on algorithms that keep saying, "Oh, what do you like? What do you like? Let me pander to that." We don't pander to that. You know, even if you came into the shop and said, "Oh, I like thrillers." Okay, great. I'll give you some thrillers, but I'll slot in something that's sort of like that. So even people who are just only reading black authors, which are not many, but, you know, people whose bookshelves are dominated by black authors, I'm still saying, well, let's stretch you. Let's think about something that's slightly out of your comfort zone. You know, we're engaging with non-readers at an astronomical rate. Like, it's incredible the amount of non-readers that come into the shop and leave with a book and come back and tell me that they loved it. And can I give them something else? Again, those places, Amazon is not going to impact the reading crisis in this country. But we are, and other independent bookshops are. And so that's how I view it, because otherwise it just wouldn't be worth doing, right?
Yeah, very daunting. Just kind of on that note, you know, that's just one example, but as many founders will know, or people who have tried to set something up on their own, what has building and creating Afrori cost you personally that people don't see from the outside?
Ouch. We don't talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I had a friend who called me, who came to visit me recently. My daughter got married and she came to the wedding and she said to me, you're a bad friend. That really hit. Because she's not in the shop. And yeah, my life is dominated by the bookshop, and some of that in a good way, because I love my job. I genuinely love my job. I love being in the bookshop. I love being around people. But it dominates my life. And the downside of that is I guess I'm a lot more cautious than I have been previously. So I don't engage in social media outside of the bookshop's social media, because it's just not worth it anymore.
Yeah, well, we share
Trolls,
that.
yeah, the haters and etc. And I'm a lot more cautious about that private side of me being available. It's probably too late now, but yeah, I think I've seen the absolute best of people, and predominantly, we're very, very privileged that the best people, really the best people, come into the shop. But every now and then, the less best come in, and that is, that has cost. I was really badly impacted by the first race march in Brighton, and I actually had to have therapy afterwards, because I had some PTSD from that, just because we sit on a front line because we are a bookshop. We have a sign that is very visibly and obviously black. We're very proud of our blackness, but yeah, that is expensive in the current climate, I would say. And so yeah, I think those things are tough. They are tough.
In those moments when you feel tired or discouraged, which book or which author would you turn to, or recommend to others to have a look at, to bring you back to yourself?
Oh, goodness, that's a tough one. I mean, there are so many beautiful books. There's a beautiful book by Trish Hershey, I think, called Rest is Resistance. And just the title alone, right? And just giving yourself permission, just to rest, and knowing that there's still battle in that. And I think, that will probably be a good go-to. But also, just some silly literature, just some fun, just some pointless fantasy, or a little bit of romance, or something that's just far away from it all, can also help. So, Sarah El Arifi. I've just read a book called Andromeda, which is like a retelling of Greek mythology, and paints Andromeda as a queer black woman. It's, again, I love all of that kind of like, we can, because we just can, right?
Definitely. And I really, that thing about having permission resonates a lot, because I think, just coming back to your point about resistance, about the space that the bookshop and your mission are in, it is tiring. It is demanding. And if we don't protect oneself, if we don't look after oneself, the positive work that we do is at risk. And so I think that reminder just resonates with me quite strongly, because it's a message I need to keep giving to myself, but also a message I want to echo to others as well, who are working in these spaces that are demanding and tiring and so on and so forth.
I think there's a real importance for me of knowing who your tribe is, and for me, tribe is everything. So when I say tribe, I don't just mean like those blood related to me, but who are the people who just will come in and go, look, we've got you, we'll hold up your hands, we'll stand beside you, who allow me, sometimes just to be silent, and they shout and scream on my behalf. And I think that without tribe, Afrori just wouldn't exist, So I have an incredible husband. I'm privileged to work with both my daughters, but it goes beyond that. There are so many unseen people, who come in and go, okay, what do you need? And you've been one of those who just turn up at the shop when hoops happening, and just being like, okay, what do you need? What do you need me to do? And that, that is phenomenal for me, and that is, we just wouldn't exist without the people, without the volunteers, without, the people who turn up, and people who I know are just on the end of the phone.
Yeah, community is everything. So looking forward, Carolyn, what's next? What's next for you, and what's next for Afrori Books?
World. I mean, again, long list. We have a Patreon, which is really it's quite fundamental for us at the moment. I think that the Patreon is definitely a key in our survival for the future. It's the place where we're kind of trying to future-proof ourselves, I guess. There's a podcast starting in October called Before You Die, which sounds really depressing, but it's just a fun thing, just looking at the 100 books by Black authors you should read before you die. So that starts in October. In the autumn, in the autumn. Yeah, the Anti-Racist Kids Club is still forging ahead into schools, which is amazing. It's a ton of events over the summer. We're calling it the Summer of Sisters. So we've got loads of events with Black women happening over the summer, which is, we're really looking forward to. And then really just listening, I guess. I would say, to anyone listening, what's next? You tell us, what is Afrori doing? What should Afrori be doing to meet the needs of the community, to flourish, to do more and have more impact?
Brilliant. Carolyn, it's been really good speaking to you today. It's always a pleasure listening to how you talk about the challenges, the journey, and we wish you all the success for the future. To anyone listening that's local or even not local, get down to Afrori Books, support, check them out online, and be part of that community as well. But thank you for today, and we shall see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.